Hello, Mayhem Makers. I'm Mindy with Quilting Mayhem. I had a request to do a cutting tutorial, so I'm just going to try to do kind of a quick and dirty tutorial for you guys that might be new to quilting or sewing or just curious about how I do my cutting. I am going to focus, we are doing the October mystery, so a lot of you are going to have 2.5-inch strips already, jelly roll strips, as they may be called. That makes it a little easier for some of this, but I will also show you just basic cutting if you're using yardage, just to kind of give you both views of how it would work. So bear with me. This is definitely kind of a down and dirty video in my studio at home. So I'm going to adjust my camera so you can actually see my cutting mat and the fabric, which is more important for you guys to focus on than me. So give me 1 second. Sure you can see what's going on here. So I'm going to move this jelly roll strip and talk about just yardage. So this can be larger pieces. It could be, say, fat quarters, like this guy I have. Don't ask me why I have so much fabric just floating around my room. So it could be like a full fat quarter that you're working with. I just happen to have this scrap that is a full width of fabric, so it's about 40 inches wide. It is folded in half. And so when I just do my basic cutting, I'll scoot this back, hopefully get you a little more all in one view. And keep in mind, I'm kind of trying to work sideways so I don't accidentally cut my computer. So generally I would have the fold down towards my waist, and I would work away from myself. And that way I can kind of use the lines at the bottom to line up the fold a lot of times. And then I can then use generally my large ruler to line up. So I am going to do kind of a twisted view for you guys. So keep in mind though, generally when you're cutting, you have the fold towards yourself, the selvages away from you, and you want to cut away. Never cut towards yourself. I will freak out if you're in my classroom and you bring that rotary cutter back at you. So please don't do that. Good practices. Make sure you're using a rotary cutter that has a guard on it like this one, or this one is really nice. This is a bigger one, but it actually has a lock. So the guard cannot open when it's locked. When it's unlocked, then the blade moves. Both are really good cutters. This is just one I've used since the dawn of time. It's what I'm used to. And just, it's been my standby. So remember, when the black's around the guard's closed, you're going to pull it back so you expose the blade, trying to keep it about a 45-degree angle. When cutting, you'll see better once I pivot. That'll get you nice clean cuts. So I always start with my first cut that kind of cleans up the edges, because this one, unfortunately, I'm sure you can't tell in this view, but it does not have a straight edge. So I will generally line up my ruler at the bottom. This is my folded end, which would be at my waist if I was a little more room in my studio. I keep it nice straight on the fold, and then I'm going to trim on the right hand side and take off this wonky edge, which we'll show you. It's skinnier at one end than the other. So I clean that edge off. I then rotate that edge so that the clean edge is on my left, and then I start using my ruler for my measurements. So if you've been in any of my classes or my tutorials, you've always heard me complain, don't use your mat to measure, use your ruler. See, I'll bring you guys a little closer here. So then I use my ruler. So if I need, say, the 2.5-inch strip, what I love about this ruler is if you have it one direction, all my increments are on the halves. And if I flip it around, all my increments are on the whole. So I can just rotate this depending what I need to cut. I then use the clean edge on the left side of the fabric to line up the measurement I need. So I keep an eye on where it lays. So 2.5 inches is what I'm trying to cut. So 2.5-inch mark is on the clean edge, and I make sure it's on the clean edge at the bottom, on the clean edge in the middle, on the clean edge on the top. If not, sometimes I can use my fingers and just kind of tuck it in to make sure it's nice and straight. You don't want a wobbly cut. And then put pressure straight down on my ruler, and I cut. And then I can just pull this away just gently so it doesn't shift in the process, and then I would do it again. One of my other rules is that I don't do more than about 3 cuts before I clean up my fabric again. Because no matter how straight you think you're cutting, it always starts to shift. So do no more than 3 cuts, and then repeat that process of cleaning up, where you will take your fabric, say this one, and then clean up on the right hand side, and then I rotate it and I start cutting to the left. And that's how I generally do cutting. When you have bigger pieces of yardage, you want to make sure that you are lining your selvages and having a nice fold. That'll keep you a nice straight of grain. So that's the basic cutting for strips in yardage. For this quilt project, I'm going to put my big ruler away. There was questions on cutting strips. People were nervous. So we're going to give you the basics. So once you have your 2.5 inch strip, whatever it may be, I generally then take the selvage off. Please do not use the selvage in your quilt projects. It doesn't belong in there, so clean it off. Make that thing go away. And all I did, I cut before I even think, is I have my strip all lined up so it's nice and even. I lay just any straight numbered edge, doesn't matter which one I use. I just use a nice straight line. I can even use, there's a nice white line on here if you can see it. Just any straight line, line it up on the bottom, and then trim it off. That way you know you have a nice clean 90-degree angle. So make that selvage go away. Don't use it. Please, please don't use it. Unless you're desperate, unless you're at the very squeaky end of your fabric and you have no choice but to try to squeak a little bit of it in. But I generally just clean it off. For this project, what throws people off is a lot of times you keep your strips folded and you cut, cut, cut. This one is not designed that way. So for your strip, open that bad boy up, because she's not dealing in even numbers. She's dealing in odd numbers. There's 3 of each size. So open it up. You have your print facing you. It doesn't really matter, but why not? And then you start with your cutting of your strip. As you can see, I now go, this is my left side. I'm going left to right in my cutting. So we need 2.5 inch squares. So 2.5 is going to be on that clean left side. I try to make sure the bottom is straight, and I cut. Okay, so there's a 2.5 inch square. And we're just going to keep doing that to get my 3 2.5 inch squares. Now if I line this up and my straight line on the bottom and this line on the side is not straight, it's already gotten wonky because my ruler slipped, whatever the rule, whatever happened, those rulers, they get a little crazy. Just clean it up again. Flip it back around. Line up your straight line on the bottom. Clean it up. Just take a little smidge off. And then go back and do your square. You want your fabrics to be as square as humanly possible so that you don't get issues in your blocks later on. If you leave them so they're wonky and just not a nice pretty square, your blocks will start to wave and just be different sizes than they are supposed to be, and nothing good comes of that. So don't be afraid to just kind of clean it up if it's starting to look a little off from what it should be. So 3 2.5 inch squares, and then you just keep going through the strip. Now it's 2.5 by 4, so I'm just going to cut my rectangles. Same thing, I'm just lining up 4 inches on the left hand side. I'm keeping a straight line on the bottom, whatever it may be, and I don't mind having it hanging over the top because it doesn't matter. I'm just kind of keeping it in that 90-degree measurement so that it's as rectangular as it should be without any wonkiness. And I just keep going. So I make sure that side's straight. I make sure this line's straight. And that's 3 of those. I do recommend that you iron your little fold. I'm just going to flip it around because I know that this strip will be longer than I need. And I know this edge is also clean, so essentially I don't have to clean it up again. And then your next cut is 6. Now I'm using this handy little 4.5 by 6 or 8.5 ruler. I love this guy. It's not as bulky as my other ones. So for projects like these, this 4.5 by 8.5, this is my go-to. But if you have the bigger guy, that's fine. I can swap to this. Same process. 6 on the left-hand side, straight line on the bottom. So I'll use the 3 just for fun. So I have 3 on the bottom, 6 on that left-hand side, and I'm going to cut my rectangles. Having a new fresh blade is helpful when doing this. Makes cutting a lot easier. If it's not cutting real nice, change your blade. Yes, change your blade, change your blade, change your blade. It's very important. You have to do it a lot, just like needles. Otherwise you struggle. And when you struggle, it's no fun, and it actually will wear out your mat faster. Dull blades actually damage your mat. So for the longevity of your mat, for the happiness of your sanity, change your blade. Just buy them in bulk and be ready to do it. You know, I don't know how often. I usually can just kind of tell. If it's just not cutting straight clean, change it. In the shop, we change them like once a month at least. If you drop it and nick it, you have to change it. So treat it with care. But yeah, we go through a lot of blades. But it's better to do that than wear out your mat and just struggle and have not clean edges when they're just all chunky and chopped up because you're struggling with a dull blade. It's just not good for your project later on. So this is all you're doing for the cutting portion of the sew along. That was kind of last week's instructions. I didn't do a tutorial for you, but for those that are new and needed this, hopefully this is helpful. And that's just what you're doing with each strip. So you're just going to have stacks of rectangles ready to go, and then you're going to do the same with your background. You'll cut, I believe it's 1.5 or 2-inch strips, 2-inch strips, and cut the same way. Nothing changes there. So just take your strips, lay them out, cut them per her diagrams, and per whatever size quilt you're doing, because you can pick what your size is, and then be ready to roll. So, and in about 3 minutes, we're going to go do the next video of how to start the first step of this quilt. So we'll see you in just a minute. Bye.